Hi, and welcome to Monrovia Real Estate Today. I'm your host, Amir Elahi, and today's session is going to be talking about the legal ramifications of the real estate industry when it comes to foreclosure. We are sitting with our guest today, John Mansour of the Mansour Law Group. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks for having me, Amir.
And John, could you give us a little bit of background about how you got into real estate and what you currently do?
I've been practicing law in general for over about 11 years, real estate law for about 7 of those years. The impetus of the housing decline, some guidance was needed with regard to the market. And for example, real estate agents and brokers would approach me and say, hey, listen, we kind of want to know what's going on these days with the market. We're practicing out here in this field, but it's getting dangerous with short sales and what have you. And clients wanted advice from them, legal advice about, hey, what should I do? And obviously they said, well, you need to talk to an attorney. And that's how I got involved in this field. And some servicers and lenders would ask for my advice from time to time about, hey, what do you think? Foreclosure? Should we allow a short sale? Should we allow a modification? What do you think? And I kind of give them advice on that end as well. But I do also have my broker's license. I got it in 2006, my real estate broker's license. So I've been doing that as well.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. So what are you seeing? And you mentioned just kind of not only from the real estate agents themselves, but also from the lenders and servicers. What are some of the common questions that you get in terms of foreclosures, modifications, and short sales?
Mass confusion about California law is a general rule. There's a lot of, California is a very specialized state in terms of its legal protections for consumers, and frankly the legal protections it has for its lenders, for the lenders as well that lend in California. California law is much different than anywhere else. So somebody comes to me and says, well, what do you think about this issue in California? It's very different than what the issue is in Nevada. So if you own a house in California, own a house in Nevada, completely two different analysis. And I would never even venture to tell people, here's what the law is going to be in Nevada. I seek a Nevada attorney. Most of the time, people come to me, and I've had probably about 350 consultations in the last 3 years. People come to me and say, John, I'm in trouble here with my house. It's underwater. I can't afford it anymore. It's adjusting, what have you. Try to give them solutions.
Okay.
And most of the time, avoiding foreclosure, avoiding bankruptcy is where my crux is. Because if I can put them in a better position in 2 years than they are today, that's a success.
Okay.
And most of the time, it's avoiding foreclosure, avoiding bankruptcy that's going to put them in that better position in 2 years.
Right. Is there a way that they can actually avoid foreclosure and avoid bankruptcy?
Yes.
Okay.
Believe it or not, modifications do work in a lot of circumstances. The issue is really what the motivation is of the investor who owns the note. Okay, and I'm going to put out some terms out here.
Okay.
Investors are different than servicers. Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, IndyMac, now One West Bank, these big banks, traditional lenders, they're in the business of lending money. So what they do is they put the loan together and then they sell it off. The reason why they sell it off is because they want to recapitalize to lend more money. So if they had a $500,000 loan that they're making to somebody, they take that $500,000 loan and sell it for a discounted price to an investor. The investor gets a good deal because it's less than what the loan is in terms of they bought it for less than $500,000, so they get a good deal up front. But what happens is that they recapitalize. For example, Bank of America. Bank of America then has more money to lend out, which is what they're a business of doing anyway. How do they make up the difference? Well, they service. They service the loan. They become kind of the mortgage money collector.
Right.
They collect it, they take their commission, and then they pass on the rest of it to the investor. So how motivated the investor is with regard to the modification is what's really important. And by the way, there's a couple of different avenues for homeowners to deal with. I never advise people to pay anybody money up front,
okay,
to do any modification help.
That's so awesome. I'm going to stop right there because what happens is certainly we know that in 2009 that there was a law passed by the state of California that it is illegal to collect upfront fees for any kind of services involving a modification or helping someone stay in their home. So that's a great point, because one of the things that we still see that's happening today is that people are still writing checks more than their mortgage payments to actually get someone who's promising that they can actually, guarantee a modification. And so we just want to continue to kind of hammer that point home, that there is no guarantee, one, and two, nobody should be collecting money up front.
And not even attorneys, under the law you're talking about, not even attorneys can collect money up front.
That's right.
And frankly, I don't care what an attorney calls the fee, because sometimes they call it something different. I'm earning a fee not for a modification, but something else, but I'm really doing a modification. To me, that still falls within the purview of the law, and it's illegal in California.
Okay.
You cannot get a better result by hiring somebody than you can get yourself.
Awesome. And that is so, we've had, and so just as a counselor and working with groups that do counseling on the nonprofit side, and just people are asking that question all the time. Well, should I pay an attorney? Should I pay somebody? Because attorneys are promising, that they can get better results than an individual can themselves, or than, working with a nonprofit, the nonprofit organization I've just come to grow and love, because they're working hand in hand with consumers and certainly attorneys to be able to help kind of stem the tide or navigate the waters in this whole modification process.
In the Inland Empire, where I work, in Rancho Cucamonga, there is a office for Chase.
Right.
In Rancho Cucamonga.
The home ownership center.
The home ownership center. Those people, you can go in there, and for no fee whatsoever, if you have a Chase mortgage, they will work on your modification for you. Some of those individuals in there have an 80%, 85% success rate.
Wow.
Now, there's one also, it's not really advertised, but there's one in Brea for Bank of America.
I was going to say, Bank of America is rolling out that same pilot.
So what you got, though, is this. Just because they say, okay, you've been successful in getting a modification, sometimes it's not enough. Okay, if you're overextended to such an extent where even a very decent modification is not enough to get you right, then you know that house that you've bought, now that your income has gone down, or the house the price has gone down, and the mortgage is adjusted up, you know that you can't afford it. Okay, so even if you get a great modification, hey, can I still afford the house is the next question, right?
Right.
And that's really a critical decision to make. And half the time when people come see me, what I do is I take a complete financial picture, okay, and I give them a financial advice on a holistic scale, not just a house.
Right.
Because in reality, if you have $60,000 in credit card debt, you have a tax lien or something, and you have this house with a $900,000 mortgage payment, which is about $7,000 a month,
right,
you need to reconsider all your options and probably press reset.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because lots of folks are, and when you say holistic, that means looking at your whole financial picture. And so there are just horror stories out there, folks that are having to make decisions as to whether, to buy food and groceries or to buy medicine. And they're neglecting these things, all with the hopes of trying to stay in a house that they can't afford.
Right.
And so when you say reset, there's certainly a precedence out there that's being set, and really encouraging folks to say, you know what, this is not the last house that you made, that's been made. And if you really kind of get the rest of your life in order in this particular market, you'd be able to buy the same house or in the same neighborhood for half of what you paid for it anyway.
They're just over-leveraged.
Exactly.
When you over-leverage, it doesn't matter what it is, house, credit card, whatever it is, at some point something's going to give, especially if the income goes down.
Right.
What breaks my heart is seeing, 50-plus-year-old individuals come into my office and say, the only way I'm able to keep payments on this house is to draw from my retirement.
Wow.
And at that point, the realization sets in to me is that these people are actually putting their future in jeopardy to maintain something they can't afford anyway,
Right.
even with a modification.
Right.
So I, basically tell them to stop right now, because you're going to probably lose the house anyway, even after you've exhausted your 401k or your IRA. So stop now. At least you have that to rely on later, and let's make some reasonable and educated decisions.
So one of the things that it sounds like you're saying is that even in a crisis like this, and we've got lots of folks that are having challenges, whether it be income or whether it be value of properties, but it sounds like you're saying that it's really not a problem to rent.
Absolutely not a problem to rent. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the rent. I mean, the rental market, believe it or not, the rental market hasn't really gone up as much as you would expect.
Right.
I mean, you would think all these foreclosures are happening, people have to go live somewhere, so the rental market would be very, very high. Really not the case at all. At least in the Inland Empire, it's not. I mean, the rental market is still very soft.
But now the investors have what kind of say-so, and what are you seeing in terms of the investors?
The investors have the ultimate say-so.
Okay.
They're the owners of the note.
So Bank of America typically will do a loan, as we talked about recapitalizing, sell it, and then the investors then have the final say-so on whether they're going to take 6, 8, 12 months worth of payments and put them on the back end of the loan and allow Susie and Joe homebuyer to start over again with a clean slate with either a reduced interest or principal reduction and that kind of thing. So the investor makes the final decision.
Yeah, let me illustrate it this way. Let's say you got a loan in 2005, 2006, the height of the market. Bank of America initiates this loan for $500,000. Bank of America wants to sell it. So Bank of America says, who wants to buy this loan? From 2004 to 2007, there's a lot of people that wanted to buy loans.
That's right.
Because real estate was outperforming a lot of different other investments.
The stock market, of course.
Everything. It was outperforming everything. Fannie and Freddie were always there. Those were the kind of like now they're government-sponsored entities, but they were always there buying loans on the secondary market. That's what props up the housing industry, is the secondary market purchasers. Because it recapitalizes the lenders. Lenders lend more money. People buy more, right?
Right.
So Bank of America sells it to some private investor. Okay, I don't know if there's a TV show, very good one, called House of Cards. I forget which channel it was on, but it was an old documentary. And some little town in Iceland has part of its pension in American mortgage, American real estate.
Right.
So some investors can be anywhere. So Bank of America, when you ask Bank of America, say, hey, I want to do this with my loan. I want you to put 6 to 12 months of missed payments on the back end. Bank of America says, well, let's look at our contract with the investor that we sold the loan to. The contract says, if there's any change in the loan, you need to get authority from us, Mr. Servicer. So Bank of America says, well, we can't do anything without talking to the investor and getting their approval. So they get on the phone. Okay, so they got to contact some small town in Iceland to figure out, well, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones in Monrovia would like to put all this money on the back end of the loan, and somebody in Iceland is going to have to give them the go-ahead on that. So imagine the red tape that has to be gone through for them to get that approval, right? I mean, imagine that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happening. And so, I think a part of it is the media scrutiny and the kind of society that we're in, where we're looking for answers right now and we're looking for solutions right now. And that process that you just described, takes time. And so the little small town in Iceland has to get their attorney, to interpret, again, the California law, what's possible and what's not possible. And so that's why you see some of the length of time in folks actually trying to get modifications. And that's the major role that the investor plays versus the person that you're actually making the payment to, or in fact, more importantly for a lot of folks, the people that are calling you, day and night and hounding you for the past due amount.
And sometimes I get people coming in and say, I've been in my house for 2 years. Bank of America's asleep at the wheel. They're not doing anything. I've been in the house for 2 years. They haven't made a payment in 2 years. I've been there, and they haven't foreclosed or anything. Bank of America is not asleep at the wheel. What's happening is Bank of America is trying to get a hold of the investor who is missing in action. They can't get a hold of them. They don't know where they are. So Bank of America's hands are completely tied. They can't do anything.
Let me ask you another question, because one of the things that we also want to bring out is the legal ramifications of a foreclosure. And so the big question that I always get is, can the bank come after me if my house sells at a foreclosure sale and it doesn't sell for what I owe on it?
The biggest factor in that equation, whether they can or can't, is two different things. There's two different factors. one, the type of loan you have, and number two, the type of foreclosure they exercise.
Okay.
Okay? And then if you have a second loan, then it adds another layer. So you got to analyze for the second loan those two equations as well. So if you're talking foreclosure alone, let's assume that you have one loan, just one loan, and they go through a trustee sale foreclosure, which is basically the type of foreclosure where your house gets auctioned off.
On the courthouse steps.
Courthouse steps.
Okay.
Which is typically about 90% of California foreclosures for residential.
Right.
We're talking about houses that are, a million and less.
Right.
We're not talking about high-end houses. So those types of foreclosures are trustee sale foreclosures. If that's what they choose to do, and you only have one loan on it, then they cannot chase you for the deficiency. That's California law.
Okay.
Deficiency is the difference between what is owed versus what it sells for at the auction, foreclosure auction.
Okay.
Now, if you have a refinance loan, if you refinanced it, okay? Now, what I said before, to go back, it doesn't matter what type of loan you have, whether it's purchase money, meaning that you bought the house with it, or you've refinanced it 100 times. If you only have one loan and they go through the non-judicial foreclosure steps, notice of default, notice of sale, they cannot chase you for the difference.
Okay.
However, if you've refinanced it and they choose to do a judicial foreclosure, then you can be liable.
Okay, now talk to me real quickly about the judicial foreclosure and what that process entails.
Judicial foreclosure is like a court case. It's a civil action in a court. And what it is basically is they file a lawsuit against you to foreclose, and it goes through the court process, probably a year or so, a year and a half maybe. And at the end of the day, they're able to get a foreclosure order from a judge.
Right.
The problem with judicial foreclosure is very expensive for the lender. It's much more lengthy process for the lender. Because unlike non-judicial foreclosure, they have to go through court, spend money on attorneys, and it takes a lot longer. The other problem with judicial foreclosure is that at the end of the process, the borrower still has a 1-year right of redemption, which allows the borrower to redeem that debt within 1 year of it being really foreclosed. The lender can't really do anything with title at that point. So that's why most California residential mortgages go the way of a non-judicial foreclosure.
Right.
So if it goes to a non-judicial foreclosure, it doesn't matter, if you only have a first, it doesn't matter what type of loan you have. Okay?
Okay, great.
Now where it becomes important what type of loan you have is if you have a second. So let's say you have a second and you're going through this non-judicial foreclosure process. If that second is a purchase money second, meaning you only used it to purchase the house, then you're protected by a different code section.
Okay.
It's not the foreclosure code section because the first is foreclosing. The second's out there underwater, right?
Right.
There's not enough money for the first to pay the second anything. If the second is a purchase money second, then you're protected. Most people have a purchase money HELOC, home equity line of credit,
Right.
where they've taken money out after. That second is not protected in a foreclosure. Not at all.
Okay, so let me just, because I want to make sure we're clear. So there are two types of mortgages that we're seeing out here, and we can talk generally. They're basically the folks who got one loan to purchase the house, or they've refinanced one time or one loan, and if that loan goes into foreclosure, then the lender has no ability to come after them for any kind of deficiency.
If it goes into non-judicial foreclosure.
If it goes into non-judicial.
Right.
Now talk to us then about some of the other scenarios then where it may be second loans that were taken afterwards that were not used for purchase.
Yeah, what most people did is they've either refinanced their second loan or they took money out later to do whatever with it. Even if you use that money toward the house, for example, I have people coming in and say, hey, I took money out, but I used it, and now it's a second, but I used it to build a pool, I used it to fix the backyard, I used it for the house itself. For California law purposes, it does not matter. If you've taken money out later for any reason, even if it's to use it toward the house, it becomes a true HELOC or a true refinance, which means that is unprotected. It's a recourse debt.
Okay.
It's an unprotected debt. So like you were saying, some people got 80-20s, 80-15s, and it says HELOC on the second, but they used it toward the house.
Right.
So the term HELOC isn't dispositive. If you used it toward purchasing the house, then you're protected. If you use it for any other reason, then you're not protected. So those seconds now, in the foreclosure process, the first forecloses, they're paid off, or they can't do anything anymore anyway. The second, not even a penny is going to the second.
Right.
They're completely whole, and they can chase the borrower.
Okay.
In a court of law or collection calls or whatever. Now, so in that circumstance, which is actually the predominant circumstance I've seen in the state of California, foreclosure is not the best option.
Okay.
Okay. The best option, if you're looking at real estate alone, is to short sell the property.
Right.
Why? Well, because you're bringing the second to the negotiating table, right? And you know as well as I do that in that negotiation, the second will get some money.
Right, as opposed to nothing in the foreclosure.
Right. And the second's money will be not from the homeowner, but they'll get money from the first.
Right.
Right. Instantly, you've reduced your debt as a homeowner. Not from your own pocket, but from the first pocket. You've reduced your debt. It's a $30,000 second. If they get some money from the first, let's say $5,000, you've reduced your debt to $25,000. Free money. The other aspect of that is they've agreed to a short sale. They've come to the bargaining table. The second has.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is then, well, can they chase me even after they agree to a short sale? Right?
That's right.
And the answer to that question is, I would make a pretty darn good argument in a court of law that they shouldn't be able to.
Okay.
Whereas in a foreclosure, there isn't that argument open.
So the first certainly takes a big discount on their mortgage in a short sale scenario, which is better than, at this point, if you've got more than one, the short sale is probably better than the foreclosure.
Even if you have one, sometimes the short sale is better.
Okay.
For different reasons. You're going to get the same solution if you only have one loan. You're going to get the same solution out of the foreclosure and out of the short sale. Why? There's a new short sale law as of January 1st that says that at first, once they approve a short sale, they cannot chase you.
Right.
For the difference.
Right.
New law in California. So if you can get the short sale through instead of a foreclosure, your ability to borrow money later increases.
That's right.
Your ability to buy a house later is much better, much faster, 2 years versus 5 or 6.
Right.
So short sale is still preferable, and that avenue should be explored prior to sinking yourself into a foreclosure.
That's right. So now let me go back. So if there's a first and a second involved and there's a short sale that takes place, the first mortgage we know is not going to get all of their money, but the second mortgage gets $5,000, okay, and there's a $25,000 remaining balance, then are you seeing that the second lender is actually going after the original borrower for that remaining $25,000 balance? And is there a negotiation that can take place?
It's very rare. It's very rare at this point.
Okay.
The reason is because they have a longer statute of limitations to go after people. They don't have to go after them within a short period of time. Typically, on a promissory note in California, it's under the commercial code. You're looking at a 6-year statute of limitations.
Okay, so they got 6 years to come after you.
Some people think
not be in a hurry.
Some people say it's 4, but really it's not. We're not talking about breach of contract. We're talking about a breach of a promissory note, which is different.
Right.
6 years. So they're not in a hurry. They're waiting for somebody's situation to improve.
Okay.
But they get the same result in a foreclosure too. Because after the foreclosure, that second's out there in whole, waiting for you to get a better job.
Right.
It's waiting for you for your financial situation to improve. I'd rather have them sit at the negotiating table and get the short sale done and have another weapon against the second if they do choose to do it. I've seen one circumstance where they've chased the person at this point.
Okay.
But the reality is that if it was a purchase money mortgage. Just because they're chasing you for the money doesn't mean that you owe it.
Ah, okay.
I think people put a lot of credence in that the banks know what they're doing, and they really don't. Because first of all, they're out-of-state lenders. Second of all, they're hiring collection companies who are out-of-state. Most of them are on the East Coast.
Right.
Collection companies don't know anything mostly about California law. They have to be educated about it. So then about 5 or 6 times this year, I've gotten people coming into my office saying, hey, I'm ready to file bankruptcy. Okay? Bankruptcy attorneys told me that's the best option for me because the second is chasing me. Lo and behold, it's the purchase money second, after a foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other debt? Not really. You don't need bankruptcy because they can't collect the money, and all it takes is one letter to the collection company.
Right. It says according to California
and they're
state
done.
law.
And they're done.
Okay.
But that's how easy it is, believe it or not.
Wow.
But they don't understand the law. That's the problem.
Okay.
You know.
And I think one of the challenges, and you certainly may be able to attest to this, is that the process of going through foreclosure or the process of going through a short sale and just having the American dream kind of either ripped from you or slipping through your fingers is traumatic enough that people don't always make wise decisions. And so one of the things that we're certainly doing here, and that's why we're kind of doing this show, is really to try and get the information out there that people can really use to effectively kind of resurrect their lives, so to speak, or to move on in a good way. But we've talked, I've heard you mention a couple times, bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about how bankruptcy is either an effective tool or not a wise decision in some of the cases in terms of how people are trying to make themselves whole.
I've seen people use bankruptcy in the wrong way.
And I believe that is just as the case you just described would be just a really bad advice.
It's almost like having a little bit of termite in your patio.
Mm-hmm.